Hey, a wizard trapped me in this little circle and said he wouldn't release me unless I helped you write the scene headings in your script, so hope this helps. I'm going to go over what you need to know, and at the end I'll cover some advanced use cases if you're into that kind of thing. Boom. All right. We need to start off with some caveats here. Screenwriting rules are not set in stone, so some of the stuff that I'm going to cover in this video isn't going to look like other scripts that you've seen, and that's fine, because different screenwriters have different styles. I'm not trying to say this is the one way that you have to do it. I just want to give you some guidelines to help you out. We should also deal with the fact that scene headings are weird. Like, they're just weird. And part of that comes from the fact that scripts are doing two things. Like, on the one hand, there's this document used for production, and so they have specific needs to actually make the thing. And on the other hand, your script is this story document that is trying to impress agents and managers and producers and execs and all those people. And those are different needs. And so when you have a script doing two things at once, it gets a little weird. All right, I think we covered the caveat so people don't yell at me about screenwriting rules, even though they're still going to yell at me. Let's get into the basics of scene headings. I have some here in this document that you can see. They're highlighted in pink, and just to say off the bat, they're not normally highlighted in pink. I'm just doing this so that they're easier to see. Scene headings are what we call a script element, like a dialogue or a character name or action lines. The scene headings tell you where and what time of day the scene occurs. They're at the start of the scene, and every scene has one. The scene lasts from one scene heading all the way to you hit the next scene heading. Scene headings are aligned to the left side of the page like you see here, and they're written in all caps. But you don't actually have to write them in all caps, like have your caps lock on. If you're using screenwriting software like Arc Studio, which I'm using here, it does the formatting automatically. So if I just go to new line, type sharping interior, Betty's house, day, you see it's automatically in caps. I didn't actually type that in caps. When the script goes into production, there'll be numbers assigned to each of these scenes, but if you're just writing a script on your own, you don't need to worry about that. Don't put numbers on your script. That's just a production thing. They can be in bold or not. So I have mine not in bold. That's my preference, but it's a writer preference thing. If you're using Arc Studio and other things, you can automatically set them to be bold. Some writers like to put them in bold because they stand out more. I just think it looks kind of weird, but again, it's a preference thing. And with preference things, it's important to remember the difference between a rule and something I just don't like. I don't like them, but that doesn't mean you can't like them. It's a distinction that more screenwriters on the internet should recognize. All right, that's the basics. Let's get into the parts of a scene heading. They start with a prefix. So it's going to be interior, like here, exterior, like here, or I/E, which means interior/exterior. You also might see that as interior/exterior like that in some scripts, but it's the same thing. Interior means the scene is happening inside. Exterior means the scene is happening outside. And I/E or interior/exterior means it's happening simultaneously both inside and outside. Usually with I/E, this will be a driving scene where you're in the car with the person and also kind of outside of the car, like looking at the surrounding area. The interior or the exterior is determined by where the camera is. So if someone's inside a house, but you're sort of looking at them through the window, you're outside, the camera's outside, that's an exterior shot. If the camera's inside the house with the person, then that's an interior shot. So it's where the camera is. It's kind of the POV of the scene is interior or exterior. All right, that's part one. Man, we are just cruising. All right, part two, the location. This is maybe the most important thing, or one of the three most important things of a scene heading of the three things. So first you have the prefix, then you have the location. This is where the scene takes place. Interior office, interior/exterior, Jim's car/freeway, exterior Jim's house. It's where you are. With the location, you just want to be simple and clear. Interior diner, exterior park. Don't try to cram too much information. Generally, you want the reader to be able to kind of like look pretty quickly at the scene heading, get the gist, and move on. However, you also want to be consistent. If you've described a location as like Mark's house or, Jim's house here, next time you come to it in the script, you want to still call it Jim's house, not house or big house or mansion or something, because that confuses the reader. They might think that you're at another place when you're still at Jim's house. All right, so that's the basics of locations, but you can also have secondary locations. So I have some examples for you here. So for instance, let's say you're writing something that takes place in a hospital, interior St. Mark's Hospital, but A hospital is a big place. There's lots of different places within the hospital. You can use a secondary location to say where you are in that hospital. So for instance, interior St. Mark's Hospital dash lobby, interior St. Mark's Hospital dash ER, interior St. Mark's Hospital dash operating room. It's so you know where you are within a larger space. So you have the bigger space first, and then the hyphen here or dash, and then the secondary location. Sometimes you'll see this written differently. There'll be like a comma, but I think probably the most common way is with hyphens here. But again, sometimes you'll see it look differently. All right, cool. Let's move on to the time of day. That's the third part here. So the basic ones are day and night. And that kind of comes from, again, the history of production. The important thing is like, is the sun going to be there to help light this scene or not? Or do we need a lot of lights? That's where it started with. But again, because as I mentioned earlier, these scripts are doing two things. They're production documents, but they're also storytelling documents and sales documents that you're using to get people excited about your script. It has evolved to other times of day, like evening, afternoon, early morning, late night. Those are some of the ones that you'll see. Don't get too crazy and too specific about it. It's more just like the general time of day. It's important also to note that these are times of day. They're not days like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. They're not specific times, usually also like 3 p.m. Unless you're writing a script like 24 or something where keeping track of the exact hour is really important. You could use that in the scene headings. They're more general, like what's the time of day, kind of how much light is around. Of course, there's also some special cases here where there is no sun. For instance, like what if you're in outer space or underwater or some other place like that where there's like no night or day? You don't really have to put night or day there. You could do something like, for instance, let's say your exterior outer space. You could kind of just leave it like that. Or you can do like interior spaceship, I don't know, space. Or you could do it even in parentheses, maybe like space, something like that, or outer space. Just kind of make it clear, right, that there is no sun or day, so it's sort of moot. Another thing you can do with the time of day is if like you're doing a period piece, you can use this as a clue to the reader of exactly where we are. This is particularly helpful if you're moving between times. Like let's say you're writing something that happens in like the 1980s and the 1950s, etc. You can do something where, you know, you're like interior house day 1980. 80s, I don't know, something like that, right? Or like interior castle day, I don't know, 1400s, something like that, or like 1450. This is one of those things that you'll see some people say you should never do. You should never put a date in there. And as a general rule, don't put like a year in there unless you're like moving between times, and then it can be very helpful to keep things straight. All right, let's move on to relative time, because the time of day can tell you like where you are in the day, but it can also be useful in telling you how much time has passed since the previous scene, which when you have a sequence and things are happening scene after scene can be very helpful. So there's a few different ones to go over. The first one is continuous, and this is probably maybe the most common one. So a continuous is when you're following a character from one location into the next location in a continuous motion. So for instance, interior house day, Tom runs out the front door to exterior house, continuous. He sees the burglar sprinting down the street. So because we went continuously with Tom from one to the next, that's continuous. It's basically when you're going, sorry, my stomach just grumbled. It's when you're following a character from one location to the next location. You'll notice here that like in some ways it's kind of the same scene in your brain because it's like continuous action. Tom is just going from inside to outside. But in terms of your script, that's a different scene because you went from an interior to an exterior. So you're in a different scene. Then there's also later or moments later. And this is similar to continuous It's just that there's been a little bit of a gap between the two scenes. So for instance, interior Betty's house night. Betty grabs her car keys from Bull and heads to the door. Interior/exterior Betty's car/driveway. Moments later, Betty turns the key in the ignition. So there's a little bit of a time jump there. It was kind of a continuous thing. Like you can tell there's like a movement there. Betty's getting her car keys. She's going to get in her car and drive away. But we didn't see her open the front door, walk out, open her car door, get in, close the, like we cut out all that stuff. If we'd followed her continuously, then that would have been, continuous, each of those things. But because there was a gap there, it did moments later. And later or moments later is kind of a judgment call on what you use. Like if it just feel like it was just a few moments later, then yeah, use moments later. If there's a little bit more of a gap, you can say later. But again, there isn't like a hard and fast rule there. It's just kind of you using your common sense and what you think. Another one is same or same time. And this is basically when you have something happening in two different locations simultaneously. Often you'll see this in a phone call. So I have an intercut with, so exterior park day, Janet picks up the phone and dials, intercut with interior house, same time. Greg answers, go for Greg, right? It's same time, but we're in different locations. And that's just helpful for production to know that like the lighting basically should match between those two things because it's the same time. If it gets a little more complicated, if it's like in a different time zone or you're calling to the other time of the world, you need to specify that. But in general, same or same time. I think you'll probably see same more often, but I don't know. I like same time, but I think same is actually probably the more common one. All right, cool. That covers relative time. Let's move into some special cases. Flashback, dreams, footage. So the thing that these all kind of have in common is there are different ways of doing them. And it's not right or wrong. It's a preference thing. I like parentheses, and a lot of people like parentheses. Sometimes some people will do a hyphen and then something else. But I think you can just put parentheses in the scene heading, and that generally works pretty well. So for instance, interior house day, Carl looks at a photo of Wendy. Interior restaurant night, flashback. Carl and Wendy laugh on a date. So basically you can see kind of the flow there from this scene to this scene. Carl's looking at the photo, it triggers the memory. We're in a flashback here. It's pretty simple. That's kind of probably the most basic way you can do it. You can also set this up a little bit more using the action lines or a transition, which I can show you. So for instance, Carl looks at a photo of Wendy, and then flash back to their first date, and then interior restaurant night flashback. Or you could do something like Carl looks at a photo of Wendy, and I'm going to change this here to a transition element here. You can also use these shortcuts to change the elements in Arc Studio. Command the number, or on a PC, control the number. And then I can say flash back to, and then boom, we're in the flashback. Another thing you can do is if you're coming back to the present, indicate that too. So for instance, you can say Carl when he left a date, and then was that Command 7 back to, and then interior house day, Carl size. You can also do something here where you put a present or present day in the scene heading. Sometimes that can be overkill, but it can be helpful. For instance, if these are all the same thing. For instance, if this is interior Carl's house day, this is interior Carl's house night flashback, and we're back interior Carl's house. So it's a little confusing if they're all interior Carl's house, right? You might get a little confused, like where are we, when are we? So it can be helpful to be like Carl's house flashback, Carl's house present day. So you just know where we are and when we are. Next up is dreams. And honestly, you can just kind of treat dreams like flashbacks. So you can see it like this. Oftentimes though, you can also see something where it's like exterior sky, night, dream, like that. Or you can also see flashback like that. But yeah, generally just, you can treat dreams like flashbacks. And you can also use the action line to sort of make it clear that you're in a dream. And then finally, yeah, I just want to do video footage, and there's different ways of doing this as well. But again, parentheses or, a hyphen home video or something like this, or this could be, Instagram or like a TikTok or news footage or archival, kind of depending on what it is. And then you can also use the action, for instance, like in grainy home video, blah, 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 to set it up. And if there is dialogue in this video, so this is basically like, this means that we're seeing this footage on the screen, right? It's like a movie within a movie, like a character's watching a home video or something like that. So if that's happening, let's say like Julia here as an adult is watching this home video of herself as a child. You could do like young Julia as the character name. And then as part of the character, put video and then put the dialogue in italics. And what this does is just make it really clear that this dialogue is coming from the video that's being watched, not Julia watching the video. So, you could add like Julia and maybe she's off screen. I was so young then, something like that. And you're like, oh, right, this is Julia in the video and this is Julia watching the video. So you can just like make it clear like that. All right, I hope you learned something and you found what you're looking for. If you have another question, feel free to ask it in the comments and maybe you'll get an answer. And hopefully the wizard will release me from this circle. Oh, nice. From all of us at Arc Studio, good luck with your script and happy writing. Oh, and if you want to use Arc Studio to write your own scripts, there's a link in the description. See you later. I almost forgot to finish up my little progress indicator here. It's kind of cool. It like finishes up at the top. So there's that. And we covered that. Boom.